Hello, everyone, and we're back with the 2023 Hack Summit. And it is our privilege to be here with Eli Ben Sasson, who's the co-founder of Starkware, a very accomplished computer scientist that I deeply admire. And he'll be interviewed by Chris Murray from the Hack VC and UMA team. Eli and Chris, it's a pleasure to have you here. We're excited to learn from you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Eli, I think it might be great if you could start off by telling us a bit about your journey from academia to blockchain. And yeah, I'm curious, what was formative moments for you in this journey and what led you to this point?
Yeah, so I'm a mathematician and theoretical computer scientist by training, and that was my career in academics. I did a bunch of research at the Princeton Institute for Advanced Study, MIT, Harvard, most recently Technion in Israel. And around 2008, I started dabbling in implementing proof systems in code. And I didn't really have any good reason for that. It just sounded like a cool project. The turning point for me was in 2013 when I, by chance, attended the Bitcoin conference in San Jose. And what was very startling for me as an academic from the math areas, first of all, there was a lot of excitement and jubilation in the air. That conference, something I never witnessed anywhere else in my academic life. But more importantly was when I got off of the podium, a lot of core developers of Bitcoin came up and asked, where's the code? How do we use it? And this was in stark contrast my experience in the academic circuit, where people were sort of glazed-eyed and didn't know what to do with it. So that was the turning point for me. And ever since then, I started dabbling in cryptocurrencies. I wrote an academic paper with another 6 co-authors that became Zcash, of which we were all co-founders. And then we had Better and Newer Technology, aka Stark, which led to founding Starkware in 2018.
Awesome, thank you for that. I think it would be probably a good starting point to getting into the Starkware ecosystem if we could start by breaking down some of the different components of the ecosystem. So we've got StarkX and Cairo and StarkNet, and there's a few different moving pieces. So maybe defining some of these and some of the vocabulary for the listeners would be a good starting point.
Yeah, so when we started our journey, when we founded the company roughly 5 years ago, we thought, there's this amazing technology that you can do everything with. You could, it supports general computation. It solves the integrity problem over blockchains at exponential scale. It gives you privacy. But how do we get as quickly as possible to meeting a real production use case? And we decided, or we, betted on StarkX, which was this, or still is, this scalability engine for companies that deal with massive minting and trading of NFTs and massive dealing with spot and perpetuals. So that was StarkX. It was the first product. It was always, it still is very important for us to actually deliver things that are used in production by a massive amount of users. And this still is a tremendous success. So the greatest source of scalability on Ethereum to date is provided by StarkX. We've minted over 100 million NFTs, settled nearly $1 trillion worth of value. It's been working in production for over 2 years through the thick and thin of summer and winter on blockchain. So that's StarkX. Now, the first versions of StarkX, we sort of built by hand the arithmetization or the circuits that we sort of wrote by hand, the programs that implement the logic of these use cases. And it got very complicated. So at some point, we figured out that it's much better to write a general purpose lean circuit that implements a CPU, and that's Cairo. So Cairo initially was conceived as a tool for internal consumption by Starkware so that we can build systems better and safer. And that's how Cairo came about. It stands for CPU air. So it is air is an algebraic definition. It's at the core of our Stark proving system. And the Cairo has an air that specifies the CPU. Then we realized that there's a lot of demand for this scalability, and that Cairo actually can be made into, or we can build a language over it that would make it usable by smart contract developers. And that's how StarkNet came about. So StarkNet is a layer 2, and it has a very pleasant, ergonomic programming language, Cairo 1.0. We just released 2 weeks ago. And it is a layer 2 for general purpose computation using Stark proofs.
That's great. That's a really nice overview. And in reading some of your previous works, I've seen you refer to this idea of computational integrity quite a lot as kind of being an underpinning ideology or sort of concept that has underpinned a lot of the technology that you guys have built. So yeah, I'm curious how this has kind of shaped your mission and the values and led you to where we are today, and maybe explaining what this idea is would also be useful.
So integrity means doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And if you think about blockchain, what's really the essence of blockchain is that it gives you a platform for operating with integrity with respect to things that are of tremendous social value and require social consensus. So if you think about Bitcoin, it solves the limited functionality of money and payments, which is nevertheless very important. And if you think a little bit more, I mean, all of the value that we attribute to money is related to our trust in a social consensus, that the scarcity of money and the sort of enforcement of property rights with respect to money are maintained. So Bitcoin solved that in a beautiful way. It's about integrity of computation with respect to money. And then Ethereum came around and said, oh, we can actually have general computation for social functions, things like elections and voting and due process and arbitration and property rights, digital property rights, NFTs, things like that. So even blockchain is all about solving the problem of computational integrity, that end users know that the right thing is done even when they're not watching, and with respect to things that are of tremendous social and economic value. So that's what blockchain does. However, what it does is it does it by a method of naive replay. So all the nodes on Ethereum need to execute each and every transaction, and like sort of the verification of the integrity of the computation is done by everyone repeating the same computation, which isn't so efficient. So Starks, and in general, these cryptographic proofs, they're all means to an end. And the end is computational integrity when done on the side. So again, integrity means knowing that the right thing was done even when no one is watching. So what Starks do is they use the blockchain in order to enforce integrity on things that are run not on the blockchain. And thanks to the deep math and cryptography, if you trust the blockchain and you trust the math, or you believe the math, or you verify the math, then you know that a proof that is verified on chain means that you have computational integrity, means that a bigger computation was done in the right way, even when you're not watching. So the reason I speak a lot, or we speak a lot about computational integrity, is that Stark proofs in all of our systems are a means to an end, and the end is knowing that the right thing is done, even when you're not watching.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of that's to do with the different use cases for Starks between succinctness and verification and all of the different ways in which this technology can be used. So speaking in a bit more detail around StarkNet, I'm curious on how you see the relationship between Starks and sort of the blockchain ecosystem or blockchain technology as a whole evolving together, in particular with the rise of layer 2s like we have today with StarkNet. and how you see this continuing to evolve as maybe Starks become an underpinning key technology to enable scalability and other potential use cases as the layer 2 ecosystem continues to grow.
Yeah, so when we came out with Starks about 5 years ago, there was, and for quite a while, there was this discussion in research circles and also some, teams that were building stuff about Snarks versus Starks and all kinds of different variants. And I think as the dust is settling, I think it seems that the world of developers is seeing that we were right in saying that for scalability, also for safety and for future-proof reasons, Starks are the best in class. There's one aspect of them in which there are other proof systems that are better, and that is the length of an individual proof. For Starks, it's slightly higher. But when you look at amortized proof length per transaction, and when you look at things like, safety in terms of how vetted is the math, how much do you rely on math as opposed to relying on all kinds of new assumptions, and in terms of, post-quantum security and other things, and also just speed of proving and verification, Starks really are best in class. So as a result of that, I think by now, to the best of my knowledge, all of the projects building, for instance, in Polygon, various forms of proof systems. So there's Maiden, Polygon Zero, and Hermes. All of them use pretty much Starks throughout, maybe with a little sparkling of a Plonk at the very end. But over Bitcoin, the Zero Sync project is also in Starks, and of course Starknet. So, and there are more. So I think the world is converging on agreeing that we were right in suggesting Starks as the best technology to be used for scalability and also for safety. So I think, I have, in my view, and I had this for a very long while, I had no doubt, it's just now a little bit playing out, that Starks are going to be prevalent and ubiquitous, and you'll see them across all blockchains. Hopefully then they'll also be adopted in the conventional world, because you need integrity there as well. So I'm very optimistic about prospects of Starks in blockchain.
That's really interesting. And Starknet requires a different programming language. It's not really an EVM per se. And this means that there is some trade-offs when it comes to the developer experience. And I'm curious around why you as a team chose to not go with building a ZK EVM, sort of what the implications of this are, maybe the benefits or the trade-offs, the negative trade-offs, and how you guys position yourselves around that and the implications of needing to learn a new language for existing developers.
Yeah, so I'll remind the listeners that, again, we started at it first, and so I've been doing the theory to practice of proving systems, both Snarks and Starks, since 2008, including building the first compilers from C and C++ to Snarks and to Starks, way before this existed, defining new virtual machines, the TinyRAM machine, playing around with a lot of stuff. So we know what we're doing, okay? And the reason we decided to define a new programming language and a new virtual machine is that ultimately you want, the big bottleneck is the proving technology, okay? And we understand this proving technology really well. What happens is, if you take a virtual machine or a programming framework that was built without thinking about the proving technology, you will incur a huge overhead that it kind of makes sense. Like, if you didn't factor in that thing, and I'm not blaming anyone for not doing that, because before there were proof systems around that you wanted to care about, then it wasn't a constraint. So if you think about things like, x86 or the Java virtual machine or MIPS or RISC, and of course the EVM and other such things, they're really good at what they do, but they're not good when you want to generate proofs for these computations. So Cairo, as I mentioned, started off as a virtual machine that we wanted to consume internally because we understood it gives you immense scale. So, already 2 or 3 years ago, we've been able to, include in a single proof hundreds of thousands of transactions, and today we can do millions of them. I'm pretty sure that the competing technologies that are, there was a flurry of announcements on ZK EVMs over the past week. I'm pretty sure you cannot fit 1 million, transfers over an EVM in one of these proof systems. And the reason is, they're not bad proof systems. Actually, all of them are the same proof systems as ours. They are Starks. The reason is that you're trying to prove things for a virtual machine that really wasn't built with proofs in mind. So because we understand our technology really well and want to play the long range game, we want to be future proof, and we want to build things that will really scale when you need them. We're confident that Cairo is going to be it. I just want to say that just like we predicted 5 years ago that the world is going to come around to using Starks as the proving system, I have no doubt that I just think it will be a quicker process. I think the world will come around to see that Cairo 1.0 and the Starknet operating system are really the way that you want to do validity rollups. I have no doubt about that. And I should also mention that Cairo 1.0 is actually a very ergonomic and pleasant language to build in. It is very Rust inspired, so there's that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually was going to ask this later, but I guess it's actually more appropriate now. And I was just interested to hear a lot more about the Starknet Alpha 0.11 launch and the road and journey that you guys are on to Cairo 1.0. I know part of this process involves a regenesis event as well as a number of other changes. So I think it would be interesting to hear some high-level details on what we could look forward to in this upgrade, implications for the ecosystem, and the things that you're the most excited about in this change.
Oh, I'm excited about a lot of things, so let me start mentioning a few of them. The first one is that, and maybe this is the most important thing, is if you're a developer and you want to build for something that will really give you future-proof technologies and things that really scale very well in the future. So you should start learning Cairo 1.0 today. It's a very pleasant language. I myself am right now running through the Starklings exercise sequence, which is very much like the Rustlings one, which I'm also running through, and it's also very pleasant. So it's very easy to come on board. That's the very first thing that you should know. This is the main thing that came out with version 11 that was just released. We now have a stable, Rust-like, modern, ergonomic, and safe programming language for developers to work in. Regenesis pertains to things that were written previously. If you're already a developer and wrote in previous versions of Cairo, you know about it. If not, you really don't have to worry about it. You just now program in the stable Cairo 1.0. Now, we announced this a long time ago that we have like 3 phases that we're thinking about. The very first is functionality, just giving developers a stable and good, safe and ergonomic developer experience. Now, I should mention the language is settled. You can deploy on it. There's a lot of tooling around that is still, in the works and needs to be improved. But you might view that as also an opportunity to join in and help with these things. So please, developers of the world, especially if you're into building infrastructures for what will be the infrastructure of scalable blockchains, global scale, please join. Now, what's coming next? In roughly 2 to 3 months, version 12 will come in, and now we'll see a dramatic increase in performance. Again, all of it working with proofs seamlessly, and then whoever's already deployed will be able to harness a TPS that is significantly greater than Ethereum's, and the version after that will include volition. So basically, which is another thing that Starkware invented, and many others have adopted since then. It's the ability by users and developers to decide which of the data they want to put on L1 and which of it they want to keep on layer 2. The trade-off is, price and security. And that brings us roughly to the middle of the summer. And then the next big thing that will happen after that, and a number of steps, is of course decentralization, initiation of the fee in Stark tokens inside the protocol, and a lot of exciting stuff related to opening the network further.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd love to dig into the journey to decentralization and all of that. But before we do that, one question I had, like as a developer myself, one of the big benefits of the Ethereum ecosystem and all these EVM-based chains is you can kind of leverage this existing massive network of developer tooling and hardware and software that is all kind of designed to work together for what you're doing. I'm interested to hear what your approach is to creating like an equivalently robust ecosystem with documentation and like all the developer sort of sugars that come with working within an EVM-based environment, and how you intend on overcoming some of the hurdles there.
It's a challenge, but I think I'm very optimistic on that because there's a large and growing network of ecosystem of Starknet developers that are filling in these gaps and bringing this tooling. There's I forgot the name of these projects, but there's Grabs by Software Mansion, which gives basically some developer toolkit. There's Pathfinder, which again is like a standalone development package. And we're nowhere close right now to the experience of an Ethereum developer. But I'll tell you that in the first few years of Ethereum, the Ethereum experience was nowhere close to that of a Rust developer or an Android developer. Nevertheless, people came there because they understood that this is a new and exciting universe with immense potential. And it's the exact same conviction that the Starknet folks have these days. They understand that we're building something that is future-proof and will reach global scale, so it's worth the effort.
Totally, yeah. I think that's the right approach. And as the ecosystem grows, so the tooling will improve, and that's what we saw with Ethereum. And that pattern will very likely repeat. So one question in terms of scale, right? Because a lot of what we've been discussing is like why a lot of your design decisions were there to enable sort of bigger scale than any other paradigm could enable versus a ZK EVM and some of the benefits that come with that. But I'm curious what some of the challenges are that you guys have been faced by specifically when rolling out Stark-based technologies at scale, and some of the practical problems that you kind of hit into this, and what some of the issues are with overcoming those.
Yeah, that's a terrific question. So many of a very long time ago, since we settled on Starks, we noticed very early on that the bottleneck for us is not so much on the proving technology. Not that it cannot be improved, but it's working pretty well. So I would say that almost all of our efforts so far went into things like productization, audits and security, making a system that really, really works. And I think it's important to notice, again, we saw a flurry of announcements about ZK EVMs coming out. I think a lot of them are going to be productizing, on mainnet, and just be aware as a developer that you'll be experiencing probably a lot more of the, growing pains that one advantage of working on Starknet is that it works on a technology that has already gone and outgrown those initial pains, but things related to backends and how do you spin up more provers when you need them and then shut them down when they're not needed to save costs, monitoring the network, making sure that there are no critical bugs. And so I would say that most of our effort went into that. And the other thing is into good developer experience, good interfaces and APIs to use. And of course, all of Cairo 1.0 is about that. It's about the safety and ergonomics of development. So those are where like almost all of our efforts have been spent, and also on like testing in production what really works. And yeah, it's a long and ongoing process with constant improvements. Things like recursive proofs, which we've now using in all our systems in production for a long time. Usage of cloud platforms in a very efficient way, so on and so forth.
That's very interesting. Early on, we mentioned briefly the journey to decentralization here, and I think it only warrants us circling back to this. So yeah, I'm interested on the vision of what a future decentralized or more decentralized version of Starkware would look like. What are the components that are easy to decentralize? What are more difficult? How does the Stark token fit into this vision? And yeah, generally, how do you see that evolving as the ecosystem matures?
So first, ultimately, because blockchains are a technology in the service of social functions, which require vast social consensus. Okay, Starknet will fail if we don't reach massive decentralization and a clear understanding of everyone that there's no central one party that controls it. By the way, I think some of our competitors, the reason they will, that some of them have already failed and, you don't hear of them so much, and I think some others will likely fail, is that at some point people will realize that this technology is really being controlled by a very small number of members in a very centralized way, and that's not sustainable. So we understand this, that you need like true decentralization of all aspects of the technology. Now, what's been already going for a while, and again, more developers are invited. There's a lot of the infrastructures needed for Starknet to be this public good are already being done by external teams like Lambda Class and Nethermind, Software Mansions, and many other, wallets, block explorers, full nodes, things like that. The virtual machine of Cairo, and many others. The Starknet Foundation, which has been set up and has the majority of the tokens, is already starting the process via committees of ecosystem members, started the process of reviewing and preparing grants in the Stark token. That's one thing that will go. The token itself will be used for three things: for paying fees in the network for that utility, has been already used in governance in the very first vote, but will be used also for governance, and will be needed for staking to operate the decentralized sequencers and provers. Now, I hope that by the end of this year, we will have a very clear, maybe we'll even have taken the first steps on decentralizing the sequencer and the provers via proof of stake protocol that we've already written extensively about and we are currently researching. So expect, within a year, maybe less, to have this whole thing fully decentralized, including the development of next versions. And yeah.
That's awesome. That's a really exciting thing to look forward to. And I think, the journey to decentralization has proven to be a very difficult part for a lot of these layer 2 solutions as they scale. And decentralizing sequences and this kind of thing is a non-trivial problem for sure. But that's really interesting. I think we're out of time. So Ed, I think you're going to pop back in here, but thank you so much again for your time, Eli, and your insight on these interesting topics. And I'm really excited to see where the Starkware ecosystem continues to grow.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Eli and Chris. This has been an amazing session. We learned a lot and really appreciate it. If you enjoyed learning from Eli today, please consider donating to charity at hacksummit.org. And if you're a developer looking for a new job, we can help connect you to startups at hackjobs.org. It's a free service we're just doing to help out the community and the audience. And that's hackjobs.org and hacksummit.org for those two links. And Eli, did you want to just drop in a link to your website in case developers want to learn more about Starkware?
Yeah, I'll drop in just one thing about Cairo, Cairo 1.0, and then from there are a whole bunch of links. Let me just drop it here.
Great, thank you. I encourage all of you to check out Cairo and Starkware. Thanks again, Eli. We had a great time with you today and appreciate your help, Chris.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, by the way, with the founder and CEO of Audius, which is building a decentralized music network on Web3. It's a really interesting use case of Web3 being applied to basically disrupt the music industry and incumbents like Spotify and Apple Music. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun together. So stay tuned.